We're in the light once again for G2 Esports versus Origen game number 2. Now this is technically, as we all know, game number 5 between these two teams. They played a 3-game series that the full VOD is available on my channel, and that was victory to G2 3-0. We're only going to be VOD reviewing Game 2 of this series today. It goes on to become one of the shortest professional series of all time. Maybe, in fact, the world's shortest, given that the third game is like 5 minutes long. But the heavy request for this one is because of the funnel comp. Now, we'll talk about what a funnel comp is and isn't when it crops up. Let's just go over the draft and open it up. Now, we're going to talk about this mostly in the context of just specifically this particular game. As you know, I usually want to speak about games in the context of the series, but I think because this one's more of a discussion point and jumping off point on what G2 is and isn't, the final comp and whether that's something the fans need to know more about or not, we'll get to it. So, with what's banned, and remember, we've jumped around regions a little bit today. You should notice that the picks and bans here are not a world meta. This is very much a European meta. For example, Karthus jungle ban we did not see in LPL or LCK. We do see from G2, and it's one that Cold and Jankos both play. So we're going to see it banned away. That part is understandable. Now, if you're going to play Funnel, actually banning Karthus is not a bad idea because Karthus power farms so hard that your access to camps is going to be less when you're roaming around from mid lane as Zyra Khan, because Karthus is going to clean out more camps than expected. So if you actually play cat and mouse with Karthus jungle in a funnel, there is a real chance that Karthus is actually more competitive in farming than you might expect. But that's a target ban. Draven's considered a ban in LEC compared to other regions where we see very little of it. Was played by Jackie Love. He's a trademark Draven player. In game number 3, the only, in fact, common red side ban is Sylas, which 9.6 Sylas is pretty bonkers. On Origen's side, you know, they've already played a 4-game series against G2. This is their 5th pick and ban in a week on the same patch. And they're going to take a different approach. They've been able to get a lot of advantages over Jankos. If you remember, Jankos had a bit of a struggling series against Origen when they played. I actually thought Cold was significantly better than him on that day. But in spite of that, it still ended up being a pretty comfortable victory for the side of G2. So I like this approach on blue side of ban Skarner because it has the good matchup into Rek'Sai. Just leave Jarvan open because Rek'Sai does, I think, takes the better side of the matchup against Jarvan. And then just take Rek'Sai. They get something and it doesn't give up much. Wow, Wonder's pissed off at the moment. I guess he really, I don't know what's going on here. Maybe he has a thing against Xayah. I don't know. He also has a bit of a beard going. Best beard in the West? Probably not. Now, the Zyra Khan priority is very early here. And that's something to ruminate on if you're G2. There's been metas where you red side Zyra Khan pretty openly, and there's not a lot to take away from that. And I don't think this is that meta. So you think about what's being given up here. They don't take Jarvan in a region where Jarvan can just be flexed to top side, and then you might say, oh, they're out of junglers. So it's pretty conspicuous when a first pick jungler comes in that the enemy team doesn't take a jungler. Now, it doesn't mean everything or nothing, but it is something to think about. Like it's suspicious to see Zyra Khan red side, 2 picks taken. Now, this, of course, with the hindsight of knowing where it goes, but just putting it out there, even just without that information, it's still a little bit peculiar to not see something like Jarvan plus X at this pick. Regardless, we see what we see. We go on from there. And we keep the draft going. Now, Rise is left open. In a lot of regions, Rise, as we know, is pick ban status. I've talked about how OP I consider it to be. And it's G2, who is one of the best Rise teams in the world. And you're like, okay, where's the Rise at? Worth noting, no Taric or Sona ban on red side. So that opens up Sona Taric. Rek'Sai has pretty decent synergy with Sona Taric. It's not quite Hecarim levels of abuse, but it is something that, it works pretty well, right? Because you get on-hit damage from the Sona in team fights. It reapplies a lot when you get more CDR on levels into your ultimate. Therefore, Rek'Sai brawls pretty decently with the Sona and also can take the Bastion link well from Taric. So at this point, you're like, okay, let's think about Zyra Khan versus Sona Taric. We've seen a lot of different approaches for how to play against Sona Taric. The one that LS talks about being like Lucian Galio, for example, and the ability to just run over that duo lane with on-command AoE crowd control and Lucian's early damage. That's a viable way to go. We've seen teams try to outscale it. For example, Twitch was played by Fnatic against Origen in a losing sense. And I think outscaling is so hard because I think with the extra wards, it gets too hard to set up the fights you want with an outscale comp when the enemy at all times can see everything you're doing with the extra wards, and in this case, the Tremor Sense as well. So I'm not huge on the outscale, but some people do try to take Vayne into it or Twitch into it or try to outscale it. Or you go ultra early game against it, which can have its own scary things. Like you could go Talia Pantheon against it, and you would burst Sona pretty damn fast. But Taric can disengage, channel the E, so that the stun will always apply onto the Pantheon if he jumps onto Taric, if he's the only person he can hit. So we haven't really seen a great recipe, and my first thought is gank it a lot, play around bot side, kill them a lot, and then just, have a good proactive mid game. That can work. But you think of what Zyra Khan would do, and you're like, well, I mean, Zyra Khan have a pretty strong laning phase, but you can go cleanse on Sona. It's going to be pretty hard to kill her. It's pretty hard to kill Pantheon as well. There's a decent chance you can burst someone down at 6, but no guarantees. And if it's 6 on both sides, Zyra probably can't burst hard enough to make it work through exhaust or cleanse and things like that. So that's, not that great. Toad, one of my subscribers, Toadsworked, I assume it's a German name, talked about the Blitzcrank that we did see pulled out by Origen against Fnatic. I think that's a pretty cool choice because a hook onto Sona should be death. Taric can do nothing in that case because she's away from, say, Dazzle range. And even if Cosmic Radiance is going to arm, it's going to take too long and you just kill her. That was a good answer, the Blitzcrank support. But they've already locked in Zyra Khan. So we're just talking about Zyra Khan. You're like, that doesn't really seem like it's going to do much apart from pressure. The Rakan's going to walk up to throw out Qs, and then Sona's going to ignore the minion wave and throw out her Q. Like, this doesn't strike you as an inspiring answer to Sona Taric. If anything, it kind of scales alongside it with some all-in options early game. What about equal scaling and a hyper carry and a shield support? Absolutely, you could do that, right? Like Karma Vayne, right? Problem is that when can Karma Vayne actually turn on and win once Sona Taric get past level 11? The answer is, well, if you don't have counterpicks in other lanes, if you get vision control and you're coming in late as Karma Vayne, Sona Taric's poking, holding their buttons, and then they know when your go button is. They press R, and they have vision on you with the double sightstone that Sona has, the quest cash in, and you never really get to set up the fight you want. So I find it really hard to justify those scaling options. Another suggestion here is something like Nami Cog. I think Nami Khan will be very interesting. What about Cog? He's the strongest champion late. He's the strongest champion for 8 seconds or 6 seconds. Does anyone remember? I think it's 8 seconds, right? He's the strongest champion for 8 seconds, and then he really kind of sucks against Sona Taric for the next 8, right? And 8 seconds sounds like a lot of time, but you get that first auto win, and that doesn't really show his power. Sona Taric do their thing, and that clogs up at least 2.5 seconds. And then if Sonatara can heal through your first 8 seconds, you just kind of run over them. So I actually don't think that Cog's going to work that well against Sonatara because they have such high uptime on shielding and healing. I don't think it works. So, like, there are ways you can, and if you outskill and Sona or Tara makes a big mistake, obviously that doesn't matter, right? But you can see how we're like having a lot of trouble working out a 2v2 that works. So, what other options do you have? A very interesting question to ask. The fact that G2 get Rise here, you're just like, oh, they're so good at Rise. What does it mean? They take Rise, and G2 have shown nothing. There's no rat here. There's no ruse about their first one. You're just like, oh, Origen, like in the duo lane, like it's pretty decent. So the pretty decent lane for Sonataric, and you know the Rek'Sai. Now the Jarvan ban here, I guess it's a relief ban from a Kennen. Like you kind of think Kennen's gonna be blind picked now because you see, I know in EU they really like Jarvan into Kennen, so you see this and you say, okay, like, because the G2 bans with full information of the ruse they're pulling should also have some information. And it seems like a Kennen coverage ban, but also a champion who can all in and make Rise's life hard. The Corki ban is something that a lot of people are going to consider power picking at MSI. I think the Corki meta might be there. It's a champion that obviously synergizes really well with Sonatara come late game. It's just a safe champion that maybe can follow with package, but it's kind of an interesting one. It's one that Nuke Ducks played quite a bit of at the end of the season. And then as Origen not knowing about the funnel, you look at the enemy team and you say, okay, what do we want to remove? They remove LeBlanc as to open up, say, a safer draft for Nuke Duck because he's blue side, not red side against Caps, and obviously getting hard counterpicked by LeBlanc might really hurt the range of champs that he wants to play. You often see Corki picked into LeBlanc as well, so it's a very possible thing. They see the Corki and they're like, oh, what does that mean he wants to play? Okay, let's just ban the LeBlanc. Obviously, we know G2 on an epic mind game, but the Hecarim ban here is fine because you want to get in there and disrupt. And Hecarim from 1,000 range dives in, fears, knocks back. Like, he's annoying for Sonatara to deal with. And there's a possibility that you're feared and can't press your R button on Taric when you want to. So it's just one of those things. The Morgana here is the real suspicious choice. Because the moment the Morgana comes in, it kind of has to be a funnel. Because, yes, Morgana can jungle, but, you know, you can go solo queue and Morgana jungle, and, yeah, you hit your bindings, it's pretty good. But the moment Morgana comes in, Occam's Razor suggests she's going to be in the bot lane, and you already have a Rakan. You're not going to be running Morgana Rakan in the bot lane. Again, in the LCK, we saw Morgana Pike played. Last year, this year, we saw Morgana carry played by Spirit. The moment the Morgana comes in, like, yes, it could be Morg mid, Rise top, and just Zyra Khan, right? Like, it's possible, right? And it's last picking jungle, but it's getting towards the suspicious side here. So, yeah, you're right. It's good to call that out. It could still be Morg mid, Rise top. But it's still, like, you know, there was the interview talking about how they knew that Origen with extra information knew that G2 had run a funnel before, a different type of funnel. It's still a rat, but you're right. I think overall you should be thinking that it's going to be solo lanes here, but you have to be aware of it. My issue is if you know, like, here's the thing. You know, there was the interview about, right, about when they knew about the funnel. You never draft Yasuo into a funnel. And that's the kind of curious one here, is if it is a funnel, it's not just more carry bot lane roaming Pike. If it's a funnel, your mid laner needs to be able to shove super hard and safely. And yes, Yasuo can surf around and do some things to minions, but I don't think he surfs around. I don't think he pushes that hard. In the past, funnel comps were popular into champions like Yasuo in the mid lane. So I think the Yasuo here is pretty curious if you really do think that it's going to be a funnel. All right. So it all obviously coalesces to this situation. And you get Zyra Khan funnel. That's the thing. They know now, right? Because it's not going to be Pyke mid, Zyra Khan, jungle, Morgana, top right. It's not going to happen, right? With the Pyke comes in as Vedius loses his mind, it has to be funnel comp because it's the only possible jungler here is Xayah. It's not going to be Morg jungle. Morgana and Pyke are the duo that lanes well together. Like, as I mentioned, Bang and Effort like to run that lane, so they're going to be the bot lane. Zyra Khan is going to be mid lane and Ryze is top lane. So that's how this is going to go from this draft. Worth noting, though, that as so happens, the genius of chat, reverberates here. They could have just gone a jungler. And while their comp wouldn't have been a world beater, like if they lock in a jungler here, you're like, all right, well, Zyra Khan versus Sonataric, that's not the worst possible Sonataric lane. Morgana mid against Yasuo. Yasuo actually farms out really well against a Morgana. Morgana can't apply enough pressure onto Yasuo. And then Kennen versus Ryze is okay. So I don't feel like Origen, knowing that it was possibly going to be a funnel, drafted like it was going to be a funnel. Because the Yasuo has no pressure on funnel. I think the Yasuo gets easily pushed in because you have two people harassing him when he tries to walk up to the minion wave. And then you roam around and kill camps. So I'm a big skeptic on comms, and also playing into it. You're right in that there are the ways that they clearly were aware of it. Then why didn't they draft to respect it? Because even if they know it's going to be funnel, they're not playing a draft that plays very well into funnel. Like, I don't really like Yasuo against funnel at this point. Like, I think you need to have the ability to hit the minion wave hard and push fast, and Yasuo can do some of that. But I don't think it's that safe of a choice in this case, in my opinion. But, I mean, other people disagree. So I can be wrong on this. I liked funnel comps into Yasuo comps in 2018. So I don't see what would have changed for that to be different. This was really, really creative and heads up to do. We'll get into game and talk about what it actually created in this particular game. But, yep, you're right. That you cannot debate that they were aware of the potential of there being funnel. But let's watch how it all plays out. Because obviously this was mostly like we're in awe at this point watching the games. I'm very interested. I'll talk to G2. They're over here. I should talk to them about that. I don't agree with Yasuo versus funnel. But interesting. So let's talk about how this all works. So versus funnel, when we had funnel comps in 2018, the kind of elevator pitch we gave the viewer was that by 20 minutes, and remember this is in a pre-turret play meta, by 20 minutes, you wanted to take down all of the outer turrets and actually control the map. And that global gold and the fact that you had the priority in your side lanes and had the outer ring down, you were kind of on a timer to get the biggest possible lead before the person funneling could actually show up in a team fight on their terms with an item lead and just take over the game. So we had Zyra Khan funnel quite a bit in the LCK and Rift Rivals. I think we had 4 to 5 games of Zyra Khan funnel. And it seemed like probably the best funnel because you lock in Zyra Khan and you don't have to reveal that it's a funnel comp until very late in the draft. So you get a 2v2 that wins most 2v2 matchups and then the potential to have one of the fastest funnels as well. So it has 2 different strings to its bow in terms of what it's able to achieve. That's why it can be so powerful. And then from there, you think about the fact that if Xayah does hit the team fight at an even or better gold state, she's going to have so much gold loaded into her that having that item lead on an AD carry plus supportive champions and playmaking champions with hard crowd control around her, it's very easy to roll over the top if there is no gold and map control lead to the team that's against funneling. So Origen are the team that's against funneling, but they're actually doing funneling of their own, just in a different way. They're gold funneling here with the kleptomancy strategy. You see that it's not going to be full kleptomancy, it's just going to be the spell thieves coming through from Sona, but it's all about gold generation in the bot lane. And let's talk about the why. It's very, very interesting why to go Xayah Rakan. Like, Perks gave the great answer that it's even more non-interactive, therefore it's going to win. And actually, it sounds super troll, but he's right. So the theory behind this draft from G2 Esports is that the bot lane Morgana Pyke that they have is going to be Pyke roaming around after the early laning phase and being able to playmate. Caps, of course, a very practiced Pyke player because he plays a lot of in solo queue, and everyone had a mid-Pyke renaissance about 6 months ago. Before Worlds, everyone was practicing mid-Pyke, even though we didn't see it at the championship. Just kind of, we had the AP Rakan meta at one point as well that never happened in pro play. The issue that happens for Sona Taric is that what have we already said is required against Funnel. Against Funnel, you need to be able to pressure turrets in order to take down our turrets, get a lot of global gold onto your team, and make sure that as the funnel plays out, and the funnel's like Miracle Roll, you know, the funnel's playing solitaire, the funnel's playing a non-interactive style like this where you push in and take jungle camps from the enemy. During that time, they're not in lane. So a hard pushing champion can push up and start to get those outer turrets. And I've already said the line in 2018 terms is getting 3 outer turrets down by 20 minutes. Now, it's actually changed a bit in 2019 because in 2019, the reason why turret plates... so let's back up a bit. The reason why there wasn't expected to be any sort of real shenanigans involving Funnel in 2019, because there was a bit as they were playing around with patches and whether to put Monster Hunter back in. Let's first define Monster Hunter. So your Machete and also your Talisman have this particular thing going on here. It cut from halfway through this explanation. If your gold from minions is greater than half your gold from monsters, so minions are the lane minions, monsters are the jungle monsters. If your gold from lane minions is greater than half your gold from jungle monsters, lane minion kills will grant 10 less gold. So basically what it's saying is if you're trying to power farm your lane minions, push them out, and then as you can see from Perks and Mickey, go to the monsters, the jungle monsters, and take enemy raptors, your raptors, whatever, the scuttle crab you can get access to. They already have bot side scuttle. They're going to end up double scuttling. You're going to get less gold from the lane minions until you finish an entire jungle item. So the entire jungle item would be, you know, the full warrior in chat is what you would expect from Perks and Mickey. Because it's 2 people roaming around with good crowd control, shields, heals, etc., you're happy to just take the most direct route through things like raptors. And we see the all-in attempt here, and trying to catch an all-in transition is a great thing you can try to do against the funnel. If you get the punishment off there, the game changes very significantly. But awkwardly, Perks keeps a health lead, Mickey doesn't die, and they actually get more gold onto the person who's funneling. So that was really awkward. The gank doesn't come off. Perks felt strong enough to walk straight through mid lane, and Mickey plays it almost perfectly to disengage. They get the trade kill there, and then it's double scuttle, enemy jungler goes down. So watch the replay. Gets the information. It is ignite from mid. The first important thing... Now the question is... Okay, the pause function's not working that well. My question is, if this doesn't happen, if the root doesn't happen, can they all in to one person and kill them? Because the actual E timing here from Perks is very important. because Cold flashes in, and until this point has taken no damage from Nuke Duck, Perks, or Mickey. Nuke Duck has done 0 damage to begin it. Their damage is desync. For sure, they instantly kill Mickey if they flash on him. Instead, it ends up being a really scattered play, and the damage drop-off from Nuke Duck actually hurts them a lot in this particular scenario. So I think actually the Blade Caller timing there was really, really important. They would definitely get a kill if not for that. So shout out to Perks. But coming back to the entire Warrior enchant, when Warrior enchant is done, you get the gold from everything. So right now, if you look at gold, it's 500 gold lead to Perks, but that's mostly First Blood. Like, that's not actually that much gold, because he's taking lane minion penalty, I believe, already at this point, right? Like, he's jumping onto the monsters now, but given what's happened, it's only 400 gold lead. So it's only overall 540 gold lead, and 400 of that is First Blood. So there's already penalties going on here. So in the very early game, before you finish your entire jungle enchant, which is what, 650 gold plus 1100 plus recipe, it's like 2400 gold. I forget the exact number. You're not actually getting that big a benefit. So the First Blood is actually very important in this case, and Perks doesn't have to back. Perks wants to stay in lane and single shot by his entire jungle enchant. Now, what I want to talk about is how this strategy plays out overall. So we talked about on a simple level, the old gold standard is take down 3 out of turrets by 20 and then hope that you can close out the game from there. Because of Monster Hunter being in the game, there's another reason that we haven't seen Funnel Comp being played. And that's because turret plates were introduced. Now, at the start of the preseason, there was no Monster Hunter debuff. There was just turret plates being introduced, and we did see some funnel. So Monster Hunter was reintroduced to make funneling harder. The idea behind turret plates was there's 160 gold times 5 plus also the first turret blood gold available in a lane, that if you leave the lane to try to find jungle camps and top and bot and scuttle crabs, there's definitely going to be turret plates open to the enemy laner. And so you're actually going to not get any turret plates yourself because you can't push. And the enemy laner is going to get gold from turret plates and outgold you. And that didn't prove true without Monster Hunter in the game. So they reintroduced it. And it should be true now. It should be true that overall, because you have no jungler to apply pressure on the map, because your mid laner is the duo lane roaming around to get farm on monsters and jungle camps, there should be overall a big turret plate lead to Origen compared to G2 because they're funneling. However, that's why we don't see funnel reliably. PapaSmithy, why do we see funneling this game? In fact, all the information we need is actually already on the screen. So, Zyra Khan going around, warding, farming, getting monsters, that's working out. And the reason why I mentioned I didn't particularly like Yasuo into this duo is that Yasuo can't shove instantly I guess, Shiv, and then work over the turret. By that time that happens, definitely already going to have the entire skirmishes saber. It's definitely going to be later into the game, and other things will have happened around the map. Plus, while you're finally pushing up as a melee champion trying to take turret plates, Rakan has amazing turret dive. Like Zyra Rakan can just go turret dive Kennen or the duo lane here, and they have a lot of threat on that in this game. Yes, I understand they have a pseudo jungler, but just work with me here, guys. There's a lot to explain. So, yes, Shiv Yasuo is good against the funnel comp, but I think Shiv is so much later and is under enough pressure to get a decent back timing that I'm not like going to wait for the game to get to the Shiv point. The reason why funnel comp was very smart here is it's two different things that I like happening. The one thing is Zyra Khan funnel, the flexible funnel that you only know, like it's a kind of Friends, Ross and Rachel of it's a will they, won't they, until right at the end, you're like, okay, they are funneling. We don't just know that from Zyra Khan being locked in. That part's great. The other part that happens is that consider what happens bot lane. I was a big fan of SK Telecom running Bang and Effort on Morgana Pike because Morgana in a 1v2 can go stopwatch and, you know, can take that stopwatch for free. So post 10 minutes, very hard to turret dive, can farm from off the screen, puddle, walk away with the black shield, play very, very safely, and in a 1v2, she loses very gracefully for a 1v2 champion. Plus, Pyke is one of the best roaming supports because if you don't know he's even in your lane, you can't play around his like huge suite of engage and pick. And if Pyke and Rakan show up in your lane, you best believe you're getting knocked up and dying. So Morgana was always able to let Pyke roam, irrespective of something like Funnel. Now, why is Morgana Pyke really good in this scenario? Well, in this scenario, Morgana Pyke is nominally laning against, and I always say laning when it's Taric Sona, but they're laning against Taric Sona. How does Taric Sona play out? Well, Taric CS is at the start, and he's a melee champion who has very transparent abilities, so he doesn't really have any lane presence at all. Sona's trying to harass the person who walks up to try to harass Taric. So Taric's like the most obnoxious champion to try to solo lane with. Good luck with your top lane Taric with this version of Taric. So theoretically, you walk up to try to harass him. But Sona's there to poke you and get the quest going, and eventually she can just have lane impact because she's Sona, and she can, cue the minion wave. She has a ranged auto attack. It may not be the longest, but you're last hitting with it, and you can poke as well. So yes, Taric kind of hates his life for the first 8 to 10 minutes it takes to cash in your quest, but then Sona Taric actually start making some gold, and we sometimes see Sona Taric win lane. However, what happens in this game, chat, if you think about it, is that Morgana walks up to puddle the wave, and then she leaves. And so Sona's like, oh, I didn't actually get any damage onto Morgana. If you actually black shield and walk to the minion wave, Sona's not really getting much gold at all. And then, yes, Taric isn't getting pressured, and Taric will last hit very well against only Morgana in the bot lane, but you're not actually farming up your quest because you're getting like 1 quest proc every minion wave maximum, sometimes 0. And then you're like, okay, so the Morgana's playing defensively, still getting most of the CS and will be useful at 1 item. Sona's not actually able to cash in her quest item because there is no lane against her. It's Morgana leaving the lane and a Pyke who's roaming. As you can see, it's 4 minutes into the game, and Caps is like, screw this bot lane thing. I'm going to go roam around. So there's no way for Sona to actually cash in her quest to start CSing. So actually only Taric is farming. Like Taric's farming, Sona's frustrated at not being able to get enough gold, and Morgana in a 1v2 isn't getting pushed in. So how do you change that? You're like, okay, well, we could try to push. Well, Sona Taric can do a lot of things, but push in lane is not something they're particularly good at. And then when they finally get to the turret, the amount of turret damage Sona Taric does is pitiful. They take turret plates a lot slower than almost any other duo because Sona and Taric in the early game don't have really any AP or AD to speak of. So when they finally get to the turret, they're not actually able to do turret damage. Actually, it's genius to go Morgana Pyke bot lane against Sona Taric, plus wrestle around the enemy jungler with the funnel, because the funnel allows Morgana Taric to just AFK through bot, double gank side lanes with Rakan and Pyke, and Sona Taric can't do anything. They can't get the quest going, so the gold income is less for the Sona. Sona went airy this game rather than the Klepto, but you're not getting quest gold, so you're not going to really get Klepto procs either, so it's almost a wash on that particular case. And airy in a perfect world is the best possible Airy is like the best possible rune for Sona to have because she triple procs it. She has so many shields. She can have like 2 shields and a heal. If you go Ardent Sensor, you're always proccing it with Airy. It's really good with Redemption as well. The shield and healing items with Airy is really powerful on Sona. But yes, if you eventually can push in against Morg, which is no mean feat, it takes a long time for Sona Taric to do that. You kind of have to dazzle the wave and power chord the wave. Yes, you can then finally get some harassment onto the turret, but by then, Pyke can roam down. Rakan and Xayah can roam down. Your safety in the lane as Sona Taric is the fact that you can freeze the lane under your turret, and then Sona spends all her time poking, getting quest, denying the enemy from pushing, and not putting Sona and Taric into a position of weakness. Now, the main reason that we had solo lane Frostmancy removed is the game became about who could get the better freeze, because no one had to last hit, so you put everything into harassing and freezing the minion wave so the enemy had to overextend to try to push it or poke you. Well, guess what? If you try to play Sona Taric freezing the wave under your turret, which is the perfect way to play against any other duo, you're never getting to the turret, so you're never cashing in the Klepto. So the amount of levels upon which G2's draft just makes Origins sad is unbelievable. Like, this is like really big brain stuff where Sona Taric almost has no role. There's no chain onto Perks and Mickey X. And also, my opinion is that Yasuo doesn't push enough and doesn't have enough turret threat to actually harass down the turret. So I think really Origen have almost no options on how to play this game. Like, you see Yasuo, right? Two people are roaming. It's not like he's surfing through the minion wave and then doing turret damage here. He doesn't have the coverage to do so because his jungler died. In fact, the turret dive is going to happen topside. What do we say about best friends forever, Pyke and Rakan? It's ridiculous. Targeted stun into ability to knock him over your head with the Q into the knock up from the grand entrance. Like, there's no way for Kennen, the safest champion in the game for a blind pick top laner, to solo lane against roaming Pyke and Rakan. And Pyke doesn't even want to stay bot lane because there's no ability for Patrick to harass him if he's not in lane. You know, finally it's pushed in. Like, you never want to be this far in as any normal Sona Taric lane. Also consider this. Taric can't counter roam. Here's an even more frustrating fact. Are you guys ready to be frustrated? Here's a frustrating fact. You might say, PapaSmithy, why don't you just have Taric follow the Rek'Sai, or lane top lane against the Ryze, or lane mid lane with the Yasuo? Why don't you have Taric do that? Can someone in chat tell me why you can't just have Taric roam and have Morgana versus Sona bot? Because actually, Sona counters Morgana in the 1v1 because you just poke out the black shield. Good job by Fackers too. Sona can't stack her support items. So after the Frostmancy change, Sona actually has to have Taric next to her. So a lot of people caught that one. So even in that way, you can't even counter roam as the Taric. So, like, how many levels are you frustrated as like, you know how we have, everyone knows the blue balls expression, and then I coined blue blades for when Draven, can't cash in his passive, so he's stuck there with blue blades. I don't even know what's going on with Sona, but she's hella mad. And Origen, Sona Taric strat, like, there's so many different levels upon which they're just boned in this particular game. It just sucks. It sucks so much to be Sona Taric in this game. Blow up a kill. That's what they really wanted to do onto Mickey X in the previous fight. If the Blade Core hadn't hit from Perks in the first fight, that doesn't happen there. Just don't take Frostfang and farm. I think now with full info, you do that. But then, why did you take Sona? At that point, you just shouldn't have gone Sona Taric, right? Like, I think what we're trying to get to here is, like, yes, you could have gone kind of like we saw from Deft on Victor. You can go Corrupting Potion start Sona, and then you could lane as Sona, and then Taric could roam. But then you don't get the wards, and then you shouldn't be playing Sona Taric. Like, you go Sona Taric to also get the wards to be able to have an unfair amount of vision in the late game, not just because you want to have a farmed Sona who's pretty good in the late game. So, because of that, like, yes, one way you could have done that is not go Sona Taric, but then you should just have gone another duo lane. So, it's just another level upon which the funnel works. And to answer people who are worried and say, okay, does that mean we're just not going to see funnel? So that we're just going to see funnel at MSI? I think funnel beats Sonataric really hard. And I think it beats Frostmancy lanes who are like, I'm going to Frostmancy lanes. So not just, we could Frostmancy, like Victor Braum, let's say, but like literally like, by the way, Sonataric, we only Frostmancy. It beats those really hard. So if you know for sure it's Frostmancy, I think funnel and this Morgana bot strategy that could be replaced by Nico, in case you're wondering, and maybe even some other champions, it just beats that. So I think funnel is back purely as a counter to Frostmancy lanes, not anything more than that. Because normally, if it is just a standard 80 carry bot lane, if this information isn't so clear, you just push their shit in and you're able to get enough gold through turret plates. So in case you were worried about the funnel meta is definitely a little bit overstated. I don't think it works because I think you just get pushed in and you lose turret plates. And between Monster Hunter and turret plates, you lose too much. Another Wham Bam onto Kennen, who just hates his life. And they can just play around Wonders Lane. Like, Ryze and Morgana are the stereotypical champions you want double support to be roaming into, whether it's Pykrakan or something a little bit less soft because they have very reliable CC in their solo laners. What if they lane swap? Then they just get counter lane swapped on. I think there's probably a way to try to play the lane swap perfectly, where you could maybe super practice having your jungler, because remember, your jungler has agency, the enemy is roaming around. You could try to Sonataric funnel, but then you don't get the advantage of getting the wards. So I guess you can't lane swap to mid. You can try to keep blind lane swapping top and bot, but actually Rakan beats you to the top lane more often than you might expect. So like, there's ways where in a one-off you might be able to do something, but I think in almost every way, G2 have the answer. Like, this is very much, you're playing poker and you're playing Texas Hold'em and you can see the enemy's cards. I think they can see all the cards here. Why not send Sona mid? She can push with the Yasuo and farm quests from hitting the open tower, or easily proc it on Xayah or Rakan when they show up mid, and Taric can sit under turret versus Morg, who auto-push with Tormented Soil. Or Morg doesn't have to auto-push, and Morg at least builds ability power and will have some turret threat. The other thing that is similar to what you guys are suggesting is that you can also take lots of demolishes. When I was watching EU Masters, there was a Corki mid with demolish, and they went multiple demolishes on multiple, but there's probably a way to super cheese out the way. But then what if someone isn't actually funneling because you don't have access to summoner spells and full info from level 1? So there's actually so few ways to really know. There were ways they could have adapted better here. So if the point is there's ways that Origen could have done a bit more, I think you're right. But I think the moment that the drafts were locked in, they were kind of boned. And if you're sharing experience between Yasuo and Sona, is that really what you want? And this is kind of where my query on Yasuo comes, is that, you only have one turret plate this game, and it's not like Yasuo roamed. So, Yasuo got a kill mid lane from a hard gank onto Mickey X, and then was never able to make much happen. So it's kind of my query onto why Yasuo against funnel. But I'll talk to G2. I'm hoping to go and see them soon. So I'm willing to learn something. And if I learn something about that and it comes up at MSI, I'll share it with you guys for sure. Again, the counter funnel can't really happen, and also having Sona get the quest. Like, there's too many things happening there, I think. And so again, your query is how far ahead is Perks. He's not actually that far ahead, right? He's the same gold as Wander because of all the successful turret dives. So a thing I want to also talk about is I want to talk about when I talked to Gorilla about this, because Gorilla sent me messages about this game, and he was talking about the funnel and the fact the funnel comp came out, but his biggest surprise was that Mickey X was able to play the Zyra Khan funnel. And the reason why that's a significant factor, as we see another roam gank around, the reason why that's important is that when we saw Zyra Khan funnel meta in Korea, the Zyra Rakan team, the Rakan was the jungler. So Spirit played Rakan, Blank played Rakan, other junglers played Rakan because they were aware of jungle pathing. So Gorilla's biggest surprise and biggest compliment to G2 was that Mickey X knew jungle pathing well enough in order to play Zyra Khan funnel as the Rakan. It's an interesting thing to think about. That's another way that Mickey was able to kind of step up into an unfamiliar role and make it work in kind of a weird scenario. And the game's definitely devolved at this point. They have Control Ward lead as the funnel team. We're talking about a gold lead and 3 out of turrets against a funnel team being required, and we don't even see it there. Perk said he had to teach Mickey how to play Rakan because at first he didn't know where to be. And that's what Gorilla's talking about, Lot 392, is that it's very technical to know how to roam around and stuff like that. But that's one of those intangibles. People ask me, like, is Perks overrated? And I think he's fairly rated because he is going to be the one that's going to be able to lead that stuff. Perks does have that sort of big brain. He was a funnel player before. G2 were the best funnel team with Perks as the person playing AD carry before. Of course, that was the kind of joke of him moving to AD carry role after playing funneled Kaiser so many times. So Mickey being able to follow, the team having the trust in it, it's like multiple levels of jungle pathing. And yes, you do need to have pretty good knowledge of jungle pathing in order to funnel. Yes, you don't need to be perfect. And I actually think G2 were not flawless in their precise pathing. I think Origen were a bit more deer in headlights than G2, power farmed every camp precisely correctly. But I think Mickey was confident and able to pull it off. And these are things that shouldn't be underrated on that side. Yankos can just play Morgana because Morgana 1v2 is super easy to play, right? Everyone had good jungle path in this game except Yankos. Yep, he didn't even get to play Braum. Sad day for him. And this is read it and weep. The moment this happens when you're a funnel team and you also took the early game metric of turret plays, which is the biggest early game thing you can get, the game is already GG. So I guess we should go back for a little bit and talk about the pathing that they took. Because it's interesting, right? Let's just focus on Zyra Khan's pathing and see how they try to min-max. So they take top scuttle. This is after they already got the kill in the early game. That means they can double scuttle. So it'd be very interesting to see what sort of game we would have gotten if Cold hadn't died there. But let's just watch Zyra Khan and see how much min-maxing there is in terms of the funnel. Minion wave can't be pushed in. They take the wolves here. Yasuo is not hard pushing, and it's another spot where Yasuo doesn't have vision, so he doesn't know if he should be hard pushing and trying to get a turret plate, or if he should be trying to wait for a freeze to deny the minion wave and just hope that they run out of monsters to clear. But Xayah can come back in and push, and the wind wall's not going to be enough to stop it. So that's kind of a real struggle street there. I think in hindsight, you might consider going Demolish Yasuo instead of Domination. I don't think you need the Domination runes. You go Demolish Yasuo and you try to push in and try to punish. It sucks, and you need the Rek'Sai to be jungling around mid lane and warding both Raptor camps and possibly also trying to sneak a ward into the Wolf camp. But, this turret dive comes in because Yasuo is not pushing. So there's no opportunity cost for Mickey to be in the mid lane. Bot lane can't push because it's so Nataric. So there's no opportunity cost for Caps to not be there. So far, that's a really good path. This shop's actually a really punishing one. Small point here is that Xayah does actually back before entire warrior enchant. So we'll be facing the brunt of Monster Hunter debuff. And I don't think it updates you on when the Monster Hunter comes in. So they finally regroup after the top lane gank. Let's watch the jungle pathing again. Push out mid lane. They take the respawn scuttle after they deep invaded bot side, so very safe scuttle. Duck tries to take it down. And they punish Mickey on this. And look, it's level 3, right? To level 6 and 5. So it's a total of 11 levels against a level 3. They do take him out. So Mickey does die there. So I think that was Galaxy Brain pathing by any means. So Xayah backs. And like, what I want to show you guys here is that Xayah Rakan funnel got down to an art. And G2 were the artists of this. We're not seeing this to be a Galaxy Brain funnel comp in terms of the actual jungle pathing. Like, Mickey X is still level 3. They finally get back to mid lane. Like, if you just follow what Xayah's doing and the fact that Rakan, you know, is just roaming around, and it's more about the fact that they're able to use the overall tool set they have very intelligently. Like, they're able to use so many different things that the comp has. For example, the lack of shackles on the Pyke, and also the Rakan's ability to turret dive to hit side lanes really strongly. That's what ends up being the kind of delight here from G2. It's not that they have the world's most polished funnel. They probably played like 3 to 5 games of this maximum. They do have the ability to chain their CC and use what they have in targeted route when Ryze is there, or in this case, just the overload of crowd control to get a lot as they go around. And that's, again, the punishment they show. Like, their punishment is more about high-tempo roams and less about the funnel got every single CS and Xayah got a huge lead. Like, as we saw when we get the gold charts up, now we're going to fast forward because we've gone over these points already. Like, whenever we see gold charts, actually the Xayah is not 1,000 gold ahead of her lane opponent. Normally, when you funnel, you're way ahead of your lane opponent, but Monster Hunter debuff into the fact that they weren't necessarily pathing to min-max at every single moment, the monsters, means that it could have been a way bigger CS lead. Like, it's only effectively a 20 CS lead for Xayah over Yasuo, but they did use what the other thing they had, which was a Pyke who could roam, a Rakan who was on a long leash to turret dive. Those things worked really well. And it's how much they shut down the cannon and injected gold into the game, and then even made plays like this work bot side, that actually was the more impressive thing than specifically just the pathing coming through from the Xayah Rakan. But yeah, we get to the turret plate gold confirmation moment and things get just awkward. In my opinion, that's what sets their funnel apart last year too. There was more emphasis on smart roams than maximizing farm to the nth degree. I think that's a really important point to take on, and the onus is on those smart roams more now because the Monster Hunter debuff plus turret plates means the potential counter punishment to playing funnel is way higher than before. But when you get everything, in this case, getting the right roams off, getting good farm numbers, but also getting turret plates and a Rift Herald, it gets comical. Like, this is already the victory lap for G2. Like, it's almost impossible for them to lose the game here. Like, this is like 99% to win by 14 minutes. This game is over at 14. And if Origen gets another shot at this, they make adaptations. Maybe we see more Demolish procs. Maybe they try an earlier lane swap or a blind lane swap and try to find a way to minimize how easy it was for Morgana to clear and the long leash Pyke got to roam. But that's why we have to remember that this happens in a final when there's been like a couple of scrims by G2 of funnel, but there's been no stage games of funnel, and they bring it out, and we had to pause the game for about 8 to 15 minutes to explain the levels upon which Sona Taric were shut down by Morgana Pyke bot on a funnel in the mid lane. Like, that's how intelligent G2's gambit was, and it paid off in a best of 3 that really just drove Origen to despair. And now, with the benefit of lots more hindsight, maybe someone can play better in this scenario against the funnel comp. Or maybe they just give up on Sona Taric and the funnel comp isn't relevant. I still strongly contend that funnel is purely a good strategy against Sona Taric and not just back in the game. Like, I think there is a lot of different punishments there. I'm still not a big fan of the Yasuo. I still need to be made a believer on that. I still need to talk to G2 on that one. But there were things that could be done. They weren't done. It's just a treat to watch. Like, it was a really fun way to think of this game. And I love the fact that G2 are thinking about the game and thinking about where the game could go. Because too many teams think about how can we get the tier list picks. Oh my god, they left them open. And they don't think about what the next evolution of the game could be. Style-wise, champ pool-wise, roaming-wise. Like, this game, the closest analog to them playing funnel this far out of meta with there being no kind of funnel games in solo queue. Because let's give credit where credit's due. Funnel became a thing in pro games because Master Yi Taric boosting strategy, Kale, Twitch, those strategies worked so well, and they were turned into an awesome strategy for pro games. That's why funnel comps happened in 2018, and obviously because some work needed to be done to stop that, and there was a way to min-max. What we see here is bringing back an old strategy way out of meta to counter a new age strategy. So something new into Sona Taric, which is a few weeks old, is countered by something really old being reapplied, even though there were lengths taken to remove it from the game. Already you're like, G2, man, that's awesome. Like the wheel keeps turning and you guys are at the front of the wheel. Already you want to compliment them on that. And then we're saying, well, with enough thought process, maybe you could find some way to get relevance, but you've already been kind of put in a really rough spot as this. So even if you shine Origen's draft, maybe you come back. But I think overall, G2's Morgana Pike plus Funnel really does a number on them. And it was a two-part play of Morgana plus Pike, Pike roaming, plus the Funnel mid lane. If G2's ahead on that, what if they keep staying ahead? Because that's the scarier thing, is that they have the balls to do this on a big stage. They show a lot of reflective judgment about the game is, but more interestingly, what the game could be, and they execute on it well with a lot of aplomb. And that's where you're like, okay, this team is actually just a team you have to watch. That's the scary thing. That's why it's so impressive, is that you can, really like sand down all the like, G2 awe and like wow and shucks and get to a bit more of a kind of like mechanical level, and still G2 has a lot to like there. And that's the most scary thing for me. The game's over because they're already starting to push out the narrative now. Same when like SKT started to win game 2, you're already like starting to push out narrative because you're like, okay, we just need to find ways to talk about how great G2 is. Because there's no how do they come back in this game. This game is epically over. Because you don't lose things going for these comps. Like, yes, you lose a traditional kind of team comp, but you still have a ranged AD carry. Like, you can still front-to-back team fight win, and you should, because Perk's going to be ahead and have an Infinity Edge to go along with Warrior Enchant Zeal item. And also, the G2 members don't lose their smart understanding of side waves, of vision, of how to play around potential turret dives and things like that. Like we saw with the brush check there coming through from the Twin Shadows. G2 don't lose any of their fundamentals being ahead of the meta like this. Like, this is not a cheese comp in the way that Taliyah Pantheon is, where it's like, wow, you guys have so much firepower in the early game, but if it hits 35, if it hits 40,000 gold, you're doomed. Actually, if it hits those points, you're not doomed. You're actually still super competitive. And the Sona Taric's so behind that getting Sona Taric, who was denied gold generation, to the point where it's more standard, there's actually more cheese on the OG side, amusingly, than there is on the G2 side, which is just a struggle. Like, this game kind of needs to be 40 minutes for OG to fight back. Like, we zoom forward, and I pause it here. Remember my par time for how do you beat a funnel comp in the old school. You need to take down all 3 outer turrets and have a significant gold lead. Well, actually, they have lost all 3 of their outer turrets, and they're down 8,000 gold, which tells you that, yeah, it's really, really a struggle at this point. They can delete the Baron very fast. There's no way for the enemy to get to it. You don't have any map control, so you're just going to lose Baron for free. Easy peasy. And they always fight down and dirty in these fights really well as well. Beautiful. This is smacking them with your wallet, as Atlas would put it. Maybe I can kill Mickey. No. There's too much of an item lead already. Perks is so incredibly fed. Just a monster. Can lift off through the cannonball. Doesn't really care about anything else. Don't let Wonder have Ryze. I mean, I know you have your cap keepo thing going over there, but I don't think Ryze should ever be available third pick on red side. Like, that was just a bit of a snafu from Origen. It needs to be banned or picked by you in the 2 rounds you had to pick it. Because Ryze makes the Pyke Rakan roam guaranteed rather than just likely to find kills on the turret dive. Don't let G2 have Ryze. Agreed. Don't let SKT have Ryze. Don't let IG have Ryze. That's already a lot of teams to not give Ryze over to. See, now you do have that really big lead between mid laner and funneler. 3,500 gold. But it doesn't tell the full story. There's the same gold lead between Wonder and Alphari as there is between the person who literally had gold funneled into him and Nuke Duck. That lets you know that, yeah. The actual funnel pathing, the Monster Hunter was working as intended, but what was denied from Sona Taric was so much more relevant than the Monster Hunter buff shutting down the Xayah a little bit. That's what I hope you guys can remember, and why it's a situational countering Kleptomancy and Frostfang more so than just funnel is back. My favorite thing about this game is that I was watching Analyst Desk for the previous game. I see Vedius is in chat. He probably remembers this. My favorite part about this game was, if you guys remember, Caps was on Analyst Desk, and he was asked about Sona Taric, and he said, I don't know why these teams are cheesing. They should just play standard like they did all season. And then fucking G2 did this, and I was like, all right, Caps. All right, Caps. Definitely half listen to what G2 tell you. Like, you know, it's like when they're like, yeah, I really like the Yasuo into it. I'm like, maybe I could be convinced with a cogent argument. Also, maybe G2 are just talking some sillies. Awesome. Awesome. I love the way they played this game. It's so smart. To recap, and I talked about this a lot with the game paused around 4 minutes into the game, but the problem against the Morgana Pyke bot lane and the funnel going on from G2 is that Sona Taric doesn't have anyone to proc the quest on. They can't counter roam with Taric and just have Sona versus Morg, which Sona beats Morg really hard 1v1 because then the Frostfang doesn't cash in. So the amount that you denied from the bot lane and the fact that the quest was going to be cashed in way later just disrupted their strategy completely. Meanwhile, on the top side, the Rakan and Pyke on a long leash, they're the best. Like, you can't keep eyes on the funnel. You can try to push them back to mid, but if Xayah comes back, you can't chase after the Rakan. And Rakan and Pyke can turret dive with a Ryze every day of the week. So the fact that Origen got way less out of Sona Taric, G2 got so much out of the Pyke and Rakan roam, plus the funnel happened, plus they were more on point with their dives. It was really, really awesome. Like, I left this game being like, how good is G2, man? And like, you know, Vedius in chat, and he's talking about how G2 could be one of the absolute best. And I think if not for the Mickey situation, I'd have a lot of confidence in them. With the Mickey situation, I have some confidence in them. They're gonna do a lot of cool stuff at MSI, and I think they will be competitive. I think ultimately we'll never know what their ceiling could have been at MSI, because this is the time for them to play. They've got the swagger, they got people talking them up. These are people that clearly respond well to the community being on their side, but we'll never know exactly what they could have been. And that's the one that got away from me. Like, that makes me mad that we won't know that. But we should still celebrate G2. Like, G2 is a unique team. We just played a game, and I didn't get to this, but the one game that really this reminds me of, where G2 trapped the enemy into a box that they had the key to and Origen couldn't get out of, was Heimerdinger Jungle GSG versus CJ Entus, the game that launched my casting career. That was the game that got international attention for my casting for the first time in 2012, was the Jungle Heimerdinger game that rebound what League of Legends is and isn't. And G2 at their best this season decide what League of Legends is and isn't for them. And that's a really impressive thing for them to do in 2019. Like, they're really good. Redia's heading off. We're also going to call an end to our Game 1 VOD review. I understand we didn't talk a lot about the intricate action, because so much of this game was much more about strategy and kind of upskilling the viewers onto what to expect regarding funnel or no funnel come to MSI. I hope that you guys enjoyed that. Tried to hit all the points there, and thank you for keeping me honest on some of them. There's a lot to get through, and some of it was a bit confusing. I'm going to take a very short break, come back, answer questions, and then we're going to call it a stream, because MSI kicks off tomorrow. So thank you to the 2,000 people who tuned in for the LEC review. Short break, I'll answer questions for a little while, and then we'll call it a night. So be right back.